Berat gila tu.
In each federation.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So welcome back to the BGD podcast with Michael, Haris, and Zati. And so this week we'll be talking about the powerlifting federations in Malaysia. Last week we left off at just sort of what to expect roughly in each federation. I think this episode will focus a bit more on our experiences. I think we've as we've ended on the last episode, we've all had some experience in competing in, I guess, the multitude of federations in Malaysia. So yeah, how was your first meets in Malaysia, guys?
My first meet in Malaysia was back in 2018. So it was with MAP, and I believe it was called MPO. Yeah, sorry for the abbreviation.
So many abbreviations.
It's a Malaysian thing.
Yeah.
It's a Malaysian thing, yeah.
MCO, CMCO, yeah, same shit.
PKPB, PKPP.
Yeah. I don't even think MPO exists anymore. I think they use MPI 1 and 2, but that's a different aside. Yeah, so it was back in 2018. It was in March. If I had to sum it up, I think that was probably one of the more memorable meets that I had. I don't know if it was because it was my first meet back in Malaysia, coupled with all the excitement that finally Malaysia has an IPF affiliated federation, and I get to represent the country. I was essentially taking my first step towards that journey. I think more than that, all the positive expectations that I had, the meet itself, I thought was a pretty pleasant. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it felt like I was competing in in Malaysia we have MSSD and stuff like that, and the athlete of the sports. Yeah, well, the closest I ever got was chess Chatur MSSD. So hardly,
Brain gains.
yeah, so it hardly has that athletic feel, but it feels the same in the sense that I go to the venue. So the venue was at Complex Malangan Sukan, something like that. So it was a sports complex for the disabled athletes, I think, something like that. Yeah. I forgot what it was. I think it was in Kampung Pandan or something. So it was about 40 minutes from my house. The vibe was pretty cool. It felt like a legit competition compared to the other competitions that I've done after that, which were all in malls. This one feels like really I'm really here to compete. So I had to go early in the morning to weigh in. Yeah, I think overall it was a pretty cool experience. Legitimately felt like a competition. Nothing really bad to say about it, to be honest.
Was it the first IPF meet to be run in Malaysia?
I think so. I think it was the first ever MAP meet run. Yep.
MAP.
The only, I guess if I were being nitpicky, the only fault, only it lacked were probably competitors. So there weren't many people competing, and a lot of people also dropped out because they didn't make weight. I ended up being the only one because I think So that was the only thing that I think was a bit of a shame. But other than that, I think I thought it was pretty well run. I think for a first meet, first IPF at least, yeah.
I think on my end, I guess the first ever meet in Malaysia was with the I think it was Schoolyard in 2017 with was it 2017? I think it was 2017.
No, I think it was
2018. 2018 July, right? Yeah. Because that's after I started competing before I learned how to powerlift. Wow. So yeah,
That's woke.
that's woke as fuck, like side reverse. Yeah. Yeah. So I started learning how to powerlift in October 2017, and then my first Malaysian meet was Schoolyard 2018 in, I think it was held in Jaya. Was it Jaya? No, not Jaya. It was
Police, is it?
somewhere in
Marketplace, no?
yeah, some marketplace, yeah, some kind of I'm not sure what it's called.
Close to Glenmary. Close to Glenmary.
Yeah, it is close to Glenmary, yeah.
What's called, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Tropicana? Did you say Tropicana?
Metropolis.
Oh, Utropolis. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was like this huge open space, they had a front, I think we had it somewhere in the drive-through or something. It was like this huge open sort of like entrance to the mall. And yeah, I thought it was quite well organized, and I was like, whoa, shit, Red Bull. I mean, they've got Red Bull sponsors. I don't know how they do it, but I mean, I tried getting sponsored by Red Bull once, I think, for my club, and they were like, nah. So I guess it must be it must be pretty decent, in Malaysia, the size of it at least. And yeah, it was pretty fun. I mean, I guess the only issue I had, because I had a mock meet when I was in the UK. Like when I came back and tried to compete, like I think the humidity was the first thing that got to me. Like just competing in like hot, moist air, right?
Yeah.
Right, and it was just yeah. I think that really drained me a lot. Like after squats, like going onto bench, like on my third attempt for bench, like my back literally just cramped up, and like my hamstrings was like starting to seize as well, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And so it's like trying to stay hydrated and all. But yeah, on my deadlifts is just like I think my right calf started to cramp, and then I had to like massage that down, and then on my second attempt, my left calf started to cramp, and I was like, fuck. Okay, this ain't. You know what? We're just gonna go all in for the third attempt, right? And so I just like massaged everything, and then on the third attempt, like as I locked it out, my glutes started to cramp, and I was like, you know what? Like if I die, I die here. But yeah, locked it out, and
A
it was,
war. We're going to war.
yeah, yeah. It was just like everything that could have gone wrong, like just did, and but it was a decent meet. I think I hit like 650 or 660, 660. Oh no, I thought it was 630. I think it was quite like relatively. It was a decent like first meet, I think. So that's alright. In Malaysia at least. So yeah, I think it was quite nice. I think, and that was when I first met Zaro. I think he was like refereeing at the meet. Oh no, his spotting. I think, yeah, and yeah, I think quite a few. I think back then I didn't recognize a lot of the faces that powerlifting. I was like, oh, who's this guy? Why is this?
Yep.
Why are there so many people talking to this guy? And I'm like, okay. And yeah, I think now I'm a bit more like into the whole community, and yeah, it's.
Yep.
Yeah, as a GPA meet, I think because I've only had experience with IPF in the UK, I thought it was pretty good. Like in terms of they didn't have like that many hiccups, and it was. I think the crowd was quite. There was quite a big crowd as well, which is quite rare. I didn't expect that in Malaysia at all. Yeah, it was quite fun. I think I had a couple of friends come watch as well, so. It's like, what the fuck is he doing? He's just like lifting once in the platform. That's it. Yeah.
The thing about the crowd, and that was another thing that was missing as well in my first meet at that venue, because it was kind of like isolated in that sports complex. So there weren't a lot of not only competitors but also crowd wise, it was pretty limited lah. I feel like so.
Did that change sort of like the experience though? Like not having much crowd for you, Haris?
Because like the other meets that I've done before that in New Zealand, crowd wasn't really that big as well. So because I had one in the university and one in just like an in-house gym. So I guess it kind of felt more or less the same lah.
Right.
Like a week after that was when MPA happened in the mall in Jakarta, and like I got to see like the stark difference in the meat environment lah. So,
Right.
yeah.
What about
think mine-
yours? Yeah.
Mine, I guess, if we're to compare with both of yours, you guys' stories, I guess mine is the bad experience. So I came back to Malaysia in 2018, late 2018, and then not long after that, I decided to compete in the next year, 2019, last year's March or April, I think, somewhere around there. It was the MPI, the first meet of the year for MPI, sorry, for IPF Federation in Malaysia. So, I didn't have much expectation because the previous competition that I had was a university competition, and for the viewers or the listeners understanding a bit, the university competition isn't so much crowded, but more so like it feels like you're on a school trip with your mates, and then you're like, yeah, I'm doing it for my university or my team. It felt that it didn't felt like it didn't felt like the kind of environment that you would see in a powerlifting competition that's based in a mall where, you know, like literally strangers and crowds are watching over you lifting heavy weights. So that was what I had in mind. So my expectation was already low. It wasn't amazingly high at all. So there I go, you know, came early, weighed in, yada yada, midweight was fine. You know, then because there weren't a lot of female competitors. So usually women starts first in most powerlifting competition. And okay, we're like, they said like you can warm up now. So we all just like, all right, sure, warm up. And then they announced, okay, the first lift off will be certain hour, right? Okay, we're I think half of us are done, almost done with our warm up. Literally 10 minutes more to go on the platform. There'll be a delay a bit, so I was like, okay, it shouldn't be too long. Usually the delay are like 5-10 minutes. It's not, you know, not a big deal. So everybody just chill, you know. I remember I was there with a few friends, and few of the handlers was like, "What the hell is taking on so long?" You know, and then they didn't want to clarify it to any of us what happened, and then only much later, then they was like, "Oh, there was a glitch in um, the sorting system where athletes' numbers or attempts were sorted out and the names on flights were sorted out. That system was, I guess, eliminated by accident. So they had to reinstall, reconfigure then. And it took a while because not just reconfigure the female athletes, but they had to reconfigure the male athletes that coming up right after us. So you can imagine, you've warmed up, you know, if you warmed up to your second last or your final warm up for squat, you already kind of like prematurely text yourself.
Yeah.
So there was I text myself a bit. So I was like, oh shit, you know. I went on platform, wasn't really excited because to cover that up, there was some, I guess at the time you was already exhausted and you just want to get on with it.
How long was the
There was
delay?
1 hour.
Oh, okay. Whole fucking hour. Wow. Terrible.
Yeah,
Okay.
and 1 hour from your last supposedly warm up, and then you're cold, so you have to warm up again.
Yeah.
So like double the warm up, I guess. And then you did that, blah blah blah. You went on the platform. Judging wise, I don't think I have an issue with it. That's fair. Now that I see it from where I am right now, I think that's a good call on them. It's just that like time management was very poor. My first experience was that, and it was in a mall, somewhere in Cyberjaya, I think. It's hella long trip for me. It was like an hour trip or 45 drive all the way to Cyberjaya, and it's in the mall. I don't know what mall. I can't remember the mall. And it's kind of cool. Like, I think I kind of prefer malls over like isolated spaces, at least in Malaysia. Just for the convenience of it. Parking. I don't have to park in like very dark alleys or like, you know, things like that. Food wise is literally available. If you know, sustain an emergency or injury, there's always some Guardian or Watson or pharmacy available at your disposal. Disposable. Anyway, yeah, so like the meat was like upsetting for me, I think, because especially when you pay, you have certain expectation of it, and it wasn't met. I think it wasn't just me. The people who competed on that day was upset too, especially the men that came after me. The male flights were severely delayed. I think they were supposed to start at 3 or 4. I think it was you, was it, Harris? Your flight?
Yeah, I think we were supposed to start at 3, but then I think it started like, I don't know, 4:30 or 5.
Yeah, it was delayed, and and I remember like collecting, I don't know what medals I got at that time. Like super late. It's like midnight, you know. Yeah. So
My deadlift was at 11 p.m. 11:30 p.m.
yeah. So imagine it was supposed to start at like I think 10 in the morning for
Yeah.
me.
It's insane.
I got delayed 11 or 12, 11-ish towards 12. So I think then I prefer punctuality, at least when it involves other people in the work that I do. So that it was my only, I guess, strongest pickle at that time. I was like, nah, I cannot deal with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think it's a bit of a recurring theme with meets. It's not just exclusive to MEP, but
Yeah.
I think generally meets in Malaysia, the sticking to like the supposed schedule is a bit of a challenge. I don't know if that's like a pretty common thing in powerlifting meets. The meets that I've had in New Zealand, they weren't really like like full blown legit meets, so I can't really say much. Maybe you
Mm.
guys can add more insight on that because when
I didn't
Michael,
have that problem. I did.
right, right,
I didn't have that problem at university competition though.
Yeah, me
And
neither.
given the volume that they were handling, the amount of athletes there that they had to handle at that
Mm.
time, I think the punctuality is just. I think it's just execution of the whole thing lah. I mean, if I were to give some leeway, it's probably their first few experiences handling a meet,
Mm.
and it's not an easy task. I think I can speak for myself. I handled a small meet. It wasn't really a full meet either. And it's exhausting. It's, there's so many things going on in your mind that you have to execute. And if you
Mm.
don't have people that you can trust to delegate those tasks that can perform the quality that you expect,
Mm.
then, you're going to have to be upset other people. You're going to have
Yeah.
to upset other people. So from that empathy point, I can relate. But it's just pointing it out so that I think an athlete doesn't have to go through that, I guess, inconsistency or incompetency of conducting a meet. It's just something, if this is the job that you have to do, then you just have to get good at it.
Yeah, it's just something that I feel like it should be held to a higher standard. Like I think everyone pays. We pay like, let's say 180 to join a meet, right? And to have it run at a standard that's not what's advertised and not what everyone is expecting, it's just a bit disappointing. Like it's, I mean, sure, you can excuse something of like a 5-10 minute delay, but when you're talking about delaying more over like 50 people's time, right?
Yeah.
For half an hour till midnight, right? Like that's a bit irresponsible, as a meet director, right? And I can see
Yeah.
why the sentiment of the Malaysian powerlifters. I can see why we're all frustrated with certain federations, and in terms of just the way they run things. Um, and yeah, this is kind of like you say, it's not just limited to one federation, right? It's quite a few as well, So when is it that we can expect, right? My question to you is this: when is it that we can expect a federation to perform, to run meets up to standard? Do we gotta wait until there's more people? Do we have to run more meets? Do we, what is it that we're lacking, compared to these other international federations in Malaysia? Because
I,
if you ask me, right, like I think that this sort of planning and execution, it's something that you have to consider, right? Like you have to consider stuff not working, right? That's how you plan, for events. You have to expect the worst, right? Otherwise, how are you going to ever prepare for them when it comes? Like having the sheets deleted, like I mean that, okay, to me that's inexcusable, right? You should have backups of these sheets, right? And and that's just about just simple thinking forward and simple preparing, right? Otherwise, like let's talk about Murphy's law, right? Anything can go wrong, will go wrong, right? And that's what this sort of, I guess lack of foresight, just kind of the effect of this on people. So yeah,
I
what do you
think
guys think?
to answer your sort of question, when can we expect meets to live up to the standards, is when we force ourselves to have that standard. I think a lot of people and this is not just unique to Malaysia, but I think it's an Asian thing, dare I say, to generalize the whole continent. But it's
bigot.
what?
Just kidding. Just kidding. You're a bigot. I'm just kidding.
No, it's just like I'm calling myself out as well, but like in a sense that I think we have this practice of hypersensitivity when someone give a criticism, when a person who has the right to give an opinion of, to improve a performance, to improve a quality standard, it's often taken as something personal, when it's not. You're not supposed to take things personally, especially when the subject matter is discussed objectively. In the case of powerlifting meet, I remember I think Hari started this whole fire. He was like, someone asked Q&A with you, and then it's like, oh, I hope the people don't get it wrong. Like, There's no shade to anyone, but the standard was not up to par. There's there's lack of competency or something like that.
I remember
And
stoking that fire, just like letting it brew.
yeah, and I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity.
Let's just jump in on it.
And then I got burned myself. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I used that opportunity to sort of shed a light that the stark difference of expectation that we have for ourselves and for people who wants to see progress. I think by definition, I'm a progressive person. I want to see progress in a lot of things that I do. That's just the value that I carry myself, and I hope to push forward. And when I do that, it's always seemed that I'm hating on someone. And I think that's just a perception that people have when somebody has a constructive feedback. You cannot build upon everything that's picture perfect. Nothing is picture perfect. Like all this feedback that we're giving in, all the, I guess, the annoyance that athletes and coaches have are supposed to be your guidance. You see, okay, we lack in the sense we're sorry or whatever. There's level of communication. There's level of understanding that should be achieved and met so that you can raise the standards. Because when we talk, back and forth about competitiveness level and whatnot, on one end is that the availability of those lifters. On the other end, if the meet itself, the event itself is not exciting, right? Why would I want to suffer and summon myself to 4 times a week of training? At the end of the goal, the event is lukewarm. You see? So perception and mindset has to change, that this isn't about I'm doing a good job, please praise me. It's about, okay, am I doing the job that I'm supposed to do? So that's if until we get to that level where we can objectively say, I don't think I'm doing a very good job and I want to improve more, we'll forever be in the cyclical of like, yeah, we just do it for the sake of having it, rather than like, if you have done and put the effort forward, why don't you put the best effort forward? You see, that's always been my problem, and I sit in this frustration of like, what am I doing, like half of the people don't agree of that sentiment.
I just want to add, like, okay, just to be fair and to acknowledge, like, some of the effort that's being made. I do personally believe that this is not plug. I do personally believe that recent meet that we had with Malay Mayhem, I think they did a pretty good job in terms of like adhering to the schedule that they put out.
Agree.
We wrapped up. I think we wrapped up at about the time that we expected to. So we finished quite early. I think like 7 p.m. maybe. Yeah.
I think the meet that Mayhem did in February this year was, like I mentioned before in the previous episode, it was quite the gold standard that I think other meets or federations, at least in Malaysia, that should try to aspire to lah. I think in terms of punctuality, availability of equipments, location wise as well, how to make it more spectator based sports. They really nailed that down. I think marketing, branding wise as well is very up there. So it's, I don't know, like the standard depends where you see yourself. Is this a fun thing? Then if it's a fun pursuit, then all these small things add up, If it's like a serious, I'm down for business, that kind of thing. If you look at like weightlifting, IWF competition or Worlds, IPF, they're very boring. It's not fun to look at. It's like watching golf on TV. Like, why would you do that to yourself? You see, but if from a meet perspective, a meet organizer or meet director, you have to ask yourself, what shoe am I trying to fill? Am I trying to make this a spectators event, or am I trying to make it like a serious sports event? There's always either or. You're not bounded to just one way of doing things.
I mean, I feel like even if it's a serious competition, like you can still sort of make it like of course, like, this depends on the meet director, right? You can obviously make it a bit more engaging with the audience, like how we know with the IPF, like the famous, there's this I think Gino, he sort of he sort of brings sort of life to to a competition where you're just lifting. Everyone gets on the platform 3 times and just squats or benches or deadlifts, right? And so, and that sort of effect, I think, is what we kind of are looking for in Malaysia. Like if you've got people that can kind of bring life to the meets, right, and sort of engage, connect like the powerlifting community and like general population, I think that's how I think the meets. That's how we'll raise the standards of the meets, right? It's sort of increasing that sort of relatability, that sort of like providing some context, oh, this lifter has been training, since 8 years, last meet now he's done this, and he's a bit of background, what's he trying to do now, like tell a story, right? And that makes things engaging, and I feel like that obviously is not a requirement for every meet. It's just one of those things that would sort of I think would get a lot of
Helpful.
engagement, be very helpful in sort of realizing that, sort of let's call it meet perfection, right? And so yeah, definitely Malaya Mayhem has done a good job. I wasn't there myself, but from what I've seen on social media everywhere, like if you can see something that's good on social media, like that's clearly it's something's going right? Like whereas with MP, I think I was in MPI, it was pretty much like like after the meet, like what'd you do? Like there's not much like coverage on it, and so I guess that's that's the primary difference, at least that I've observed between these federations. And yeah, I think it'd be nice if we can talk about. I guess we've talked about like meets in different federations. What we like, what we didn't like, and yeah, I think right now it would be a good time to sort of end this episode here. And I guess we kind of touched on this before in previous episodes as well. About we've like for example right now we've talked about different experiences in different meets, and we've touched briefly on the different types of gear restrictions in different meets, and I think that's what we'll be focusing on a bit more in the next episode. So see you guys there.
Ciao.
And thanks for listening. I should say thanks for listening. Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Yes.
Yeah, we'll say that now. Thanks for listening. All right.